Parachute 2014. It is the Rhema Media tent, and so good to be talking to Gungor. Hey! Well, I say Gungor, but actually half of Gungor, really. It's Michael Gungor, and the other, can I say better half, is not with you at the moment?
I would call her the better half.
Yeah. Well, that's nice, yeah.
Yeah, she's in Hobbiton right now.
As you do when you come to New Zealand.
As you do.
Go to Hobbiton.
Yeah.
That's nice. Hey, you mentioned it yourself, you come to New Zealand. How many times have you been here before?
This is our first time.
Really?
No, yeah, it's our, we just got in this morning.
Yeah, and what do you think so far?
It's beautiful so far. We've come from the airport to here, basically, but that was a nice drive.
Yeah.
saw some lovely sheep. And
Yes. Well, there's lots of sheep.
that's what I hear.
Absolutely. Are you getting any chance to sort of travel around and see some of New Zealand?
We have like a day. I think we're gonna go to the glowworms, maybe.
Glowworms, Hobbiton.
I'm missing Hobbiton today, but maybe the beach if we have time. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, we've got a cameraman that looks like a hobbit. We could bring him out. I'm not going to say which one, so I'll get myself into trouble. But we could arrange a sort of Hobbiton if you like.
Okay, like a private Hobbiton, yeah.
Hey, obviously your wife Lisa is the other part of the group, and then you bring in musicians. It's sort of, how would you describe your own music?
That's always a hard question for me.
Always a hard thing.
It is. It's kind of trans-genre. Like, there's all sorts of different influences in it. You can kind of hear. I studied jazz in school. I studied classical music, but I love rock music. I love bluegrass. I love all sorts of different stuff. So it all kind of tends to find its way into the music somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. When you sit down to write a song or write an album, is there a way that you do it? Is there a theme, or do you just sort of let it happen organically?
Every album for me has been different, but to me, an album is kind of at the moment that we're in our lives. It's kind of putting that into music somehow. So every album has been pretty different because we've been in different stages of life and just going through different things, different experiences. So a lot of time, there's a writing stage where we're writing and figuring that out. What is this album going to be this time? And every album is different. So
yeah,
depending on what we're experiencing.
I mean, obviously your music probably in your lifetime has changed a lot. You started just being a worship leader at church, and what is your focus now? What do you want to do with your music, and what would you like it to achieve?
I think there's something about music that I feel like this connection to God, to other people, to the musicians I'm playing with, even within myself. There's just like kind of a transcendence or connection that I experience through music, and so that opening of the heart to the other, that's always kind of the driving force behind everything for me musically, but that takes different forms, So actually, Gungor is, we just came out with our new album this fall, I Am Mountain, and that's different than anything we've ever done. And we're actually starting to work on kind of a side project of church music called The Liturgists. That's more specifically like geared towards a church experience, and we're just making art that is that's true to who we are and what we're experiencing, but also hopefully opens the human heart.
Yeah.
That's kind of what.
You mentioned the music that you're writing with the Liturgists. I mean, what did that come out of? Did you realize there needed to be a separation between what you were doing on a stage, perhaps in front of a big crowd, and what needed to happen in church? Or?
Yeah, Gungor in the past has kind of flirted with church music, or I've done a couple of church singable songs, but it's also been mixed with just artistry, which there's a nature to just being an artist that you need to be as an artist true to you and like honest to yourself, and so it's inherently kind of self-centered in a way, and I don't think that's always bad. It can be really beautiful that the personal self-expression is what we people relate to from other artists. Like we hear a human being honest about themselves, and we connect with that, and we so that's fine. But there's an element to like liturgical music or church music that I don't think should be so centered on the composer or on the artist that's performing it. I think Western culture, especially in the United States where I'm from, it gets super wrapped up with, it's almost like celebrity in the church, or it turns into an ego and consumeristic and worship with that. It gets a little convoluted and a little strange. So we've always tried to kind of blur those lines in the past, but to me, I've always wanted to. This is like an experiment of like as pure of a liturgical, not based around me. Like I'm not gonna have my name on it. Like I'm not gonna have my face on the cover. Like I want other artists involved. It's kind of an experimental liturgical artistic endeavor. And maybe, I don't know, it's still in its kind of formative stages, so we'll see what happens with it. But I don't know, I like both things. I like the idea of crafting art for like prayer and ritual and a certain space. It's something that the great composers did for centuries. That's kind of been lost to our, to modern culture as a whole. It's not, most artists aren't doing that. But I think it's viable. There are billions of people in the world that get together with other people to sing prayers and sing about God. And like, I think there's art to be made for that's interesting and evocative and thoughtful. And
part of your website is quite a well-read blog that at times has been a little bit controversial. And a few years ago, and I'm sure you must get sick of talking about this particular blog, where you sort of were just talking about what your thoughts on Christian music, and were you surprised at the reaction of that blog? And I have read some comments about that online, and I think people got pretty nasty in a lot of cases, which is really disappointing to see.
Yeah, and it actually resurfaced. So I wrote this blog like a few years ago about Christian music. I deleted it because it was just a rant. It was I had experienced some negativity within the Christian music industry, and it was just kind of me like hashing some of that stuff out. At the time, I didn't have a very big readership on my blog, so I didn't really think anybody would care or read about it. All of a sudden, it was like, it blew up. I deleted it. I wrote a book that kind of clarified, like thought through what I was actually trying to say, clarified it. But then just recently, like last month, it resurfaced on somebody else's blog. And like that week, he had like 360,000 views on that blog or something. And all the people started emailing me again. I'm like, whoa, I deleted that blog. But some of what I was trying to say, I mean, I feel like I articulated it better in the book.
Yeah. And I've read the book, and it's really entertaining and very, very inspiring. So
thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of what drove the original blog, and perhaps because it was so rough and unedited, and is why it got spread around so much. There's something apparently that people wanted to talk about with it, but just kind of how art gets really disingenuous, and to me, like, it was more about than just Christian music. It was kind of about Christian culture. About how just so much fakeness, and we tend to pretend a lot within the religious world that I've grown up in.
And have you seen, I mean, you've obviously got supporters as well, people who think like you, and lots of those in New Zealand. Have you seen a sort of a changing in people's mindsets? Because I agree with you that the way we communicate faith has to change throughout the years, doesn't it? And that's not just to do with music, but that's art, and that's what happens on a Sunday, and that's what happens in our community groups and with our friends and family as well. And you're a part, I guess, of that changing in thinking. Is that something you ever set out to be a part of, or is it just something that's happened?
Yeah, I mean, I just am trying to be honest and have a conversation with it. I don't have any grand hopes of. I mean, I'm one guy, like, and I've never seen myself as anything more than just a guy in the conversation. The fact that some people have paid attention and listened and wanted to have more conversations, it's nice. But yeah, I do feel like things are changing, and the fact, I mean, we just had a conversation at here at the Parachute Music Festival about should Christians that make music call it Christian music, and what does that term even mean? And like the fact that that's happening here at like one of the biggest what some people would perceive as a Christian music festival, with the president of I don't know that 10 years ago that conversation. So something's shifting.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of feeling like seeing a lot of what the Christian music industry started as had a lot of good intentions, and it's just taken some turns, and it needs to be corrected. And you should be mindful of the ramifications of some of the language that we've used and some of the lines that have been drawn as a result.
And make sure that we remain loving whenever we deal with people.
Yeah, of course.
That's what it's all about. Hey, we'll move on to something completely different.
Let's do it.
You're playing at the festival, and I have seen you play live, and it's an amazing experience. And I say experience because I do get the feeling that you must think quite long and hard about how a show goes, and it's almost like being taken on a journey.
Well, thank you.
What can the Parachute crowd expect
from the show? Well, this album is different than, I mean, we've done the last couple albums, like especially the last album, Ghost Upon the Earth, was a really like, it was a concept record, so it told a story, one story through the whole album. This tour is not so much like that. You can expect some kind of a ride through different emotions and thoughts and genres coming at you and going away, and
a roller coaster.
A roller coaster.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Well, it's great to have you in New Zealand. I hope you enjoy your stay. Thanks so much for talking to
thanks
us.
for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Gungor. Awesome.